Very happy now to bring on a member of your Winnipeg Jets. Center Adam Lowry has been kind enough to join us today. Adam, how's it going today, man?
Well, thanks for having me on.
Now, I highly doubt you'll remember this, but we spoke a few years ago back on TSN 1290, and in our conversation, you said to me that the first thing you bought after signing your previous contract was a KitchenAid mixer. And we've gotten a lot of comments and questions about the mixer. So being a foodie myself, I got to ask, is the mixer still holding up strong? Have you added any other appliances to your kitchen game?
No, the mixer still works great. Sometimes I get lazy. I think just hand mixing's a little quicker, whatever. But for pizza doughs and things like that, the mixer's fantastic.
What's your go-to recipe? Like, are you a sweets guy over savory?
Yeah, like I can't keep candy in the house because once the bag's open, it's done. So
what's
cookies,
your
things
go-to
like that, I
recipe?
love it. What's that?
What's your go-to recipe to make?
Sugar cookie bars is probably the easiest. Like, kind of throw it in the pan, a little thicker than the cookies, a little, put them in the fridge. It takes a little longer to get through. But, I kind of like making anything. During COVID, did a little more, ventured into making some pies, things like that. That was fun. Made some pumpkin pies and pecan pies for Thanksgiving. So, that wouldn't be something I'd normally get into, but with a little extra time, was able to do it.
Well, we'll keep our eye out for the Adam Lowry cookbook coming out sometime in a couple years, all right?
No, sounds good.
All right, well, let's go from the kitchen to the ice here. 2 days of training camp now in the books. I mean, I guess we'll just start off with what's the thing you most look forward to when training camp gets underway, and what's the least favorite part of training camp?
I think you kind of look forward to the games, getting back, being allowed to hit people again, kind of the battle, the competition, and just knowing that the season's right around the corner. And probably the least favorite thing about training camp, how your body feels after the first couple of days. You kind of run down, a little tired, muscles that you don't really notice in the summer are pretty sore. So things like that, that's got to be the worst part. I usually after day 3 or 4, your body kind of adjusts and you start feeling really good out there. But the first couple of days are definitely a grind.
Do you guys still do the beep test, by the way? Is that still a thing?
No.
Okay,
actually our testing's pretty fair. Paul and Jake Wolf, our strength coach, they do a great job kind of allowing us, doing the tests that are necessary to kind of see where you're at. If you get hurt, what you need to get back to before you're kind of cleared to play. But, it's just kind of the load. You can never replicate how hard you go in practice in the off season, how like the quality of players you're playing against and things like that. I think that's kind of the thing where the first few days catch up to you. You're doing a lot more sprinting, a lot more stops and starts in the summertime, a few more stick checks, there's a few more lackadaisical back checks, things like that. And that kind of gets thrown out the window the first few days. And your body goes, okay, this is what it's got to be like. I got to start using these things again. And, it's a bit of a rude awakening. I think, we all train so hard in the summertime. You think, you'd kind of just come in and you wouldn't lose it, kind of like riding a bike. But regardless of whatever it is, it's the first couple of days, your body's pretty sore, things like that.
Well, you mentioned the physicality there, and I'm glad you brought it up because I think my favorite thing that I read about day 1 of training camp was that your new teammate Brendan Dillon wasn't too afraid to throw the body around a little bit. And apparently you had to step over and have a few words with the big guy. Do you mind telling us what that conversation was?
Well, you know what? I think the thing, we love it. Like, that's something that I think we've kind of lacked a little bit, was a little sandpaper on the back end. He's terrific with the puck, but he's got the size and he's got the bite to his game. And, I think that really complements some of the other players we have on the back end. And, it was kind of more like, you catch one of these guys, you might kill him right now. Like, maybe wait until Sunday or the first exhibition game before you really staple someone to the boards. Like, we still kind of need some of these guys to score some goals for us.
Have you ever seen that? Like, is that Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, don't get me wrong. We love it though. Like I think it's great. It ups the intensity. Sometimes you're kind of forcing you to shake off the summer skates a little bit and realize, after I move the puck, I can't admire how nice of a pass it was anymore.
Was Buff ever like that? That's who I kind of think of when I think of physicality and training camp. But was he maybe taking it easy the first couple days, or was he throwing the body out there too?
And Buff used to ease his way into it. I think he'd kind of wait to the first game, and he'd catch a guy, throw his hip out just last second, and the guy would do a flip, and then it's kind of back on. He was one of those guys that he knew he'd just turn it on in the games, whereas, some of us need to really shake off the rust and kind of use this to make sure that when the puck drops, we're ready to go.
Now, during the first session, you were doing a lot of the drills and skating around with, a guy who might be your line mate this upcoming season to start the year, and that's Christian Vesalainen. Was that by design or just kind of, you ended up being in the same line together? And have you spoken with him at all about potentially playing together?
That's kind of just the way the lines were drawn up in the board. Like, I think that has potential to kind of be the line. Obviously, we're looking for different combinations. We're going to have to replace what Mason Appleton brought, what a few of the guys on the fourth line brought, and seeing Copper skate with Doobie and Fly. That's a combination that could do some damage. They played well together last year when they were together, so. I think it's just more so kind of getting comfortable with one another. So the more reps you can get in early, it bodes well. It's going to be an adjustment period. Everyone kind of has their own style, things that they're really good at, things that, they prefer to do on the ice. And, it's kind of just trying to get in sync with each other so that, when the first game happens, there's not as many speed bumps. There's not as many hiccups where, I thought you were going to go there, or I thought you'd be here. So, yeah, I think, these first few days of camps with Stas and Best, it's, kind of been figuring out what guys like to do, kind of what's going to make them successful, and then how we're going to kind of mesh as a line. So, I thought we moved the puck a little better today, and the rushes and things like that. Yesterday was a bit of first day of camp, kind of, get the legs moving really and get the hands, they'll catch up. So, they started to catch up today.
Now, going back to the off season, and it must have been nice first off to have, a semi-normal off season after the past couple of years. But at this point in your career, like almost 10 years into your NHL career, what do you spend the most time working on in the off season?
Yeah, I think this year it was nice. There wasn't the restrictions about getting back in the gym. We were able to skate with a normal size group, whereas coming into last season, it was right before I came back to Winnipeg, we were skating on an outdoor rink because the rinks were shut down. You couldn't skate inside, so it made it a little easier to make sure you were getting the proper things. I think. For a lot of us, it's working on mobility, trying to make sure the body is as efficient as possible. I think, my strength kind of peaked to where it will be, so maintaining that, but then, the fluidness in your movements so that you can kind of access that strength at all different points. And then, just the skating for me, I think that's a big part of my game, is continuing to get better to, not necessarily keep up with the McDavids and the dry titles, but to be able to contain them, whether it's down low, to kind of be able to react to their movements. We're going to be playing a lot of good players in the Central Division and across the league that they're shifty down low. So for me, that's one of the things that I continue to try and work on is those things, so that that I'm able to kind of keep those guys in between me and the net, so that they don't have any free ice. It makes it a lot harder for them to get to Helly or kind of 2-on-1 RD in front.
Now, we asked some of our listeners to send in some questions for you, so I'll get to some of those now, and thanks to everybody who sent some of those in. But I'm really intrigued by this one, because you've kind of played the role of shutdown centerman for the Jets for a number of years now. When you look across the NHL, who are, say, the top three defensive forwards when you look around the NHL? Who do you think are the best of the best outside of Winnipeg when it comes to shutting down the opposition?
Who would I think? I think Ryan O'Reilly. I think what he does at both ends of the ring. He's so good in the circle. He's so smart. You kind of look at him. He might not be the prettiest skater. He might not be the fastest guy, but he always seems to kind of get a stick on things. Always seems to be able to disrupt plays. So I'll say O'Reilly. I think Couturier. We don't see the East a ton, so it's hard to fully get a gauge on everyone. But I think what he brings, he's exceptional both ends of the rink. He's great in the face-off circle. He's hard to play against. He skates well, and I think he's just got a great defensive mind. And then obviously Patrice Bergeron. I think there's a ton of guys that come to mind when you think of great defensive forwards, but he's kind of at the top. He's has such a long track record. He's so great, on the perfection line. So I'd say those three guys.
Do you ever watch film on players like that to try to pick up different tendencies for your game, or is it just go out there and do what you do best?
I think when it comes to things like that, you pick up on it more just the more hockey you watch. You might be watching, say, Pittsburgh Tampa game, and you see something. Oh, Crosby does this as he's going in to pick up the puck, or Point does this to kind of get away. If things like that, it's not necessarily you're seeking out this information. If you pay close enough attention, you can find it. Even in practice, you might notice. We've had some guys that have had really successful NHL careers, been around for so long, and that the more you pay attention to them, he might not be the quickest guy. He's getting into the corner. How's he positioning his stick? What's he doing to the opposing guy's stick as he goes to reach for the puck? Things like that to, give yourself these slight advantages that they might not seem like much when you're watching on TV, but you get down there on ice level and, the slightest advantage, it's the difference between you coming out with the puck or, the other guy. So anything like that, it's kind of just more watching and then, trying to pick up on these little things as opposed to kind of seeking out the information.
And when it comes to guys that are the most difficult to defend against, I mean, McDavid and McKinnon, duh. But like outside of the big boys, like who are some people that have kind of given you trouble in the past that you see them coming up on the schedule, you're like, oh damn, I got to deal with this guy again.
Well, so like you mentioned McDavid. Usually we only play him 3 times a year, so it's kind of a little bit of a nightmare that afternoon thinking about how you're gonna have to shut him down, his speed getting up and down the ice. And not only is it McDavid, sometimes they want to go nuclear and they put McDavid with Draisaitl. Now you got 2 of the 5 or top 10 best players in the world on the ice at the same time, and that's a tough challenge. And like you said, McKinnon, with whether he's playing with Rantanen and Landeskog, and they kind of do it differently, but they have a ton of speed. So but different guys that that give you trouble. That's a good question, actually. I think Philip Forsberg in Nashville. I think for me personally, like he uses his size really effectively. I think his size almost jumps up on you. You see him kind of playing other teams. You might not think he's as big and as heavy as he is, but he'll use his back. He kind of does that reverse hit. He keeps the puck far away from his body. He's got a wicked shot. And, when it was him, Arvidsson, and Johansson, and I look back to the year, they finished first in the league, and we played them in the playoffs. And, he kind of really helped make their team go. So I say he's really difficult to defend. Like he kind of comes out of the corner and he's able to get the puck off, it seems like, anywhere. I'm trying to think of one more. I'm trying to think of guys that aren't necessarily like the elites of the elites, where like, Braden Point, Kucherov, Barkov, Huberdeau, kind of all those guys, you see them in the top scoring, kind of these middle tier guys.
No, that's good though. I mean, and sorry to put you on the spot there, but
no,
I guess the other thing too is like as a bigger guy yourself, do you prefer going up against smaller, speedier guys, or you enjoy handling like the 6'3", 6'4" dudes down low?
It all depends. I think like there's pros and cons to both. Like for me, it's easier to hit a bigger guy. You're not as worried about catching the guy in the face, accidentally. It's a little easier. They're usually not as agile. but then they have the length, whereas you get into their body, their stick might still be 4 feet away from them. They can still make the pass. And then you get the littler guys. They might be harder to get contained, but once you have them contained, they're a lot easier to hold onto the wall. You might get in a stick battle. You're more likely to win those things just based on strength and things like that. But you give them the 2-3 feet space where the big guy might not be able to shuck you because he's not as agile. These guys are able to change directions, and their edges are so good. Now all of a sudden you're in a blender, and you think he's going right, you turn right, he's left, and now he's on your hip, and you're chasing him and just hoping that he makes a save. So, you have to approach different size, different skilled players differently. I think that's something. The more you play against different players, you learn kind of their style. Some guys want you to get close to them because as soon as they feel you on their hip, they're going to spin. They're going to, suck you in, hopefully draw in another guy. Now they know they have an open guy for a chance, whereas some guys don't like, you don't give them any of that space. You get on their hip. They don't necessarily love that contact. They start moving the puck a little quicker. So, I don't know if I necessarily have a preference. It's kind of, there's just different challenges for different sizes, different kind of guys. Likelihood of a small guy being a really good skater is really high. They're very agile. So for me, that's kind of making sure you kind of have a proper angle that, if they're in the corner on the wall, that they're not putting it under your stick, they're not changing direction and, kind of striking you that way.
I appreciate the insight. I mean, that's really, really interesting to hear here, and I appreciate you taking the time to join us here today. I mean, this is kind of going a bit long, so I don't want to keep you too much longer here. But I'll let you get out of here with a couple of fun ones. We'll bring it back to food for a little bit. Do you have a favorite go-to spot in Winnipeg here, whether it's through skip or pickup? A favorite spot that you like to hit up?
Yeah, well, my favorite spot on skipped order is Monticchio's. I love their garlic knots; they're fantastic. So, and Sub-Zero ice cream. Their parfaits are delicious. And then my favorite spot to go to, well, it was Carne, but I believe COVID got the better of that. I really enjoyed Pissarro, McKay. There's a lot of great restaurants in Winnipeg. Like, I think last year we weren't able to go to any. I think that's one of the things I'm looking forward to is being able to be back in restaurants again. Kind of be out and enjoy some of them throughout the city.
Awesome. And then,
and big Gusto fan, I have to say that.
Beauty choice. And then just one last one here on the team. I mean, everybody has a friend who basically only orders chicken fingers at every restaurant they go to. Who is the worst palate amongst your teammates on the Jets? Who's the one guy that you're always embarrassed when they make an order?
Well, hold on. First of all, there's nothing wrong with ordering chicken fingers.
That's fair.
I grew up basically. I was probably one of the pickiest eaters. So like chicken fingers and fries, that was like, and cheese pizza basically when I was young. But I've grown up a little. I would say the plainest guy, Jansen Harkins, Nino Pion, threw him under the bus, but he's quite picky. Well, I would have thought Nikolai Ehlers, although he's kind of expanded a little bit. So those two guys are probably gonna fight over that crown.
Awesome. Well, hey, I appreciate you again for stopping by, Adam. Best of luck this upcoming season. I guess one last one for you here. Is there like a motto the team has going into the year? Like what? I mean, expectations are obviously high, but I guess what constitutes a successful season for you and the Winnipeg Jets this year?
I don't know if there's necessarily a motto. I think what we talked about. There's a certain style of hockey we want to play. There's certain expectations kind of within our room that's but we're not going to look too far ahead. I think it's about building and kind of the ultimate goal is winning the Stanley Cup. That's every team's goal coming into the season. You got to make the playoffs to kind of have a chance to accomplish that. So I think that's the expectations, get in the playoffs and see where we can go from there.
Awesome. Well, we'll keep our eye out for the Adam Lowry cookbook. But in the meantime, have a great year, and we'll talk sometime soon. Thanks again for this.
Oh, sounds good. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Adam Lowry, center for your Winnipeg Jets. Very kind with his time for stopping by here. A great conversation, too. Love getting his insight on the intricacies of defending at the NHL level against some of the best in the league. So, again, big thanks for Adam Lowry for stopping by here today.